Welcome back to Urban Legend Hunter. This story takes us to rural West Virginia on a cold autumn night in 1998. A man we'll call Darren was working the third shift at a small convenience store just off the interstate. He had been at this job for just over a year, and in that time, he'd grown used to the strange cast of characters who passed through during the night. Truck drivers running on fumes, travelers lost on back roads, and the occasional drifter who wandered in just looking for warmth. Most nights followed the same rhythm. Stock the shelves, ring up coffee and cigarettes, take out the trash, and just wait for daylight. But every now and then, something would break his routine, and Darren had learned to trust his instincts. On this night, those instincts told him something was wrong. Around 2:30 a.m., a beat-up sedan pulled into the lot, but its headlights were off. That was unusual. The car sat there idling for a long moment before the driver stepped out. Darren couldn't see his face clearly, just a tall, thin figure who stood in the shadows watching the store. When Darren finally looked up from the register, the man was gone. He had assumed he just walked around to use the bathroom beside the building. But then came the noises. Soft footsteps outside, gravel crunching slowly, deliberately, as if someone was circling the store. Darren glanced at the cameras, but they only showed grainy patches of black and white. Each time he thought he saw movement, it just flickered away. Trying to shake it off, he grabbed a bag of trash and stepped outside. The air was cold and the woods pressed right up to the back of the lot. And that's when he heard it. A whisper, faint, from just beyond the tree line. He froze. It could have been the wind. When he turned back towards the store, he noticed something odd. A faint trail, worn into the dirt, leading from the lot into the woods. He followed it just a few feet, enough for the hairs on his neck to rise. Scattered on the ground were melted candles, shards of glass jars, and what looked like chalk symbols drawn on the flat stones. In the center of the clearing was a blackened circle of ash, as if the fire had been put out hours earlier. Suddenly, a branch snapped deep in the woods. Darren bolted back to the store and locked the door, and refused to step out again until morning. When the shift ended at 7 a.m., he mentioned what he'd seen to the morning clerk. Word got back to local law enforcement, and later that week, deputies taped off the area. Darren overheard one of them muttering that they were comparing the site to other cases, missing people reportedly along that stretch of interstate over the past 2 years. For weeks, Darren couldn't shake the feeling that whoever drove that sedan, that they weren't there to buy gas or cigarettes. They were there watching him, maybe waiting for him to follow him into that trail just a little too far. And he still wonders to this day, was he nearly taken that night? Or was it nothing more than a paranoid late shift worker spooked by the shadows and bad luck? No one ever gave him an answer. The only thing certain is the woods behind that store held secrets no one wanted to uncover.